Oh. A good evening to you, denizens of the virtual environment. We are live forthwith and post-haste in the Hive. Tonight, we offer you a scrumptious morsel for your cultured palate. So please, conjure forth emojis and a smattering of applause for the First Lady of Social VR and tonight's Masteress of Ceremonies, Navah.
Navah. Yeah, Navah.
Oh, it's so good to be back. It's Thursday. I can't believe it's April. It's the middle of April, you guys. And I am honored today because this Thursday, my friend Paige and VR Artist for Good has joined the Hive. Hi, Paige.
Hi, Navah. Thank you for welcoming me here, and thank you to your incredible audience and team.
Yes, Paige, if you don't know her by now, is someone who has been an artist for, a long time, knows the insides and outsides of art, was in museums, created programs that were in museums, and she is also a Facebook community leader and has created projects outside of just a program. She's created her own. She founded Better World Museum, and everything she does for the good of others and to help others. Her mantra is always Better World. So she created this Better World Museum, and she has done amazing things for people and created programs for people so they can draw together. And tell me a little bit about how you got here. I mean, there's so many things. She's even won a Nobel Prize. I mean, there's just a lot of things that you've done.
No. Well,
Or another
thank
Nobel
you.
Prize,
Thank
right.
you. I have not won a Nobel Prize, but I have the opportunity. Thank you. I feel super honored. Just being here at the Hive makes me feel like I have a Nobel Prize. But I had the opportunity to present about Garden One, an indoor edible garden at Better World Museum at the Nobel Prize Forum that took place in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And
Unbelievable.
And that was a Nobel Prize event.
You know, you were doing digital art and even immersive art before people even knew what that, most people knew what that was. I mean, before I was even doing anything like that. I mean, you were creating, can you tell us a little bit about how you got into all of this?
Well, thank you, Navah. I was a professional working in a museum at the Minneapolis Institute of Arts early on when social media like Twitter and Facebook really began to surge, and I was really embraced technology, and in 2012 decided to devote myself to using mobile technology as a museum. So I took a really large risk and stepped aside from education and volunteering in registration, and I had worked my way from a security guard through grad school. And I took this risk to use social media as the museum. So the first thing I did was I would use on Monday morning, I didn't actually know what I was doing, so I realized that I had no idea what to do, so I was playing the game Draw Something, and I started drawing the answers as objects in the museums. After the first few of those, museums really liked that, so I kept tweeting and Facebooking and sharing them, and pretty soon the Guggenheim invited me to be included in an exhibit. The Met Digital Media Lab had invited me to come and visit and teach their education team, show them how to draw on iPads, and museums started just taking on and embracing having me as a guest artist teacher through social media. So I would do like 1-day artist residencies with different museums and draw their collection and post them on Twitter. After a while, quite a while, I learned about virtual reality. That was in like 2013. I had developed my first drawing program with the help of a local software designer. And then after that, that kind of ignited me into like open source code and like making the whole maker movement and getting into like Arduino and interactive art and just thinking way out of the museum. So I thought about how cities could become the museum and how our fashion can become the museum and how really just our technology through the phone, through social media becomes the learning tool. So
and then you went into virtual reality. You were in Facebook Spaces. You were creating all of these things, and I mean that must have been so surreal to be able to live inside of your art.
Well, it really was. So I had developed this program called Museum Draw, and I was going to museums all around the world and drawing their collections, and then starting to really just focus on World Heritage sites. And that's when virtual reality really came into my world. I was working on sharing stories of vulnerable communities, whether it was in Syria or locally with domestic violence shelters, and we would work on ways to share with community the artwork that we were generating. So community focused projects. I did a project around Palmyra where I drew in tilt brush the buildings that had been destroyed, and then we posted a link with a group called Disquiet Junto and New Palmyra. We shared a request through Twitter for people to create sound art pieces, and they had 4 days to make sound art and then put it on a list on SoundCloud. So generating participation through social media and including everybody, and that kind of behaviors. Or with the domestic violence project, I had the iPads. I still had never put on a Oculus headset yet, but our first VR project was that we worked with a domestic violence group, and each one of us drew purple flowers. Their color for their ribbon is purple, and so we transformed those into purple flowers, and each person, 65 survivors, drew purple flowers. We turned that together with my partners Hattie Ball and Seth Gibson. We turned that into an interactive fundraising and virtual reality empathy space. So on their website, it was interactive. What would happen was when somebody makes a donation, a bee comes and pollinates the flowers with facts.
What was it like when they were doing the art? How did you see their faces and their emotions in the beginning versus after they drew? Because that's what I see so powerful, that you've been, speaking, sharing, doing all these different projects. I mean, I remember when I met you, actually over here, there's a picture of Paige and I at Facebook, and there's Vivian, there's Kathy Hackill, and look, there's Cece,
this is
and Cecile, and Eva.
First time we ever met in real life.
Yeah, we had met in social VR first, and that's where you brought me into the garden, the VR garden, and I drew that daisy. And actually,
This is
the one at the
Navah's
top, by the way,
drawing.
the one at the top right there is the
Yeah.
first time we ever met in social VR.
That is so cool.
Isn't that so funny?
I love it. So,
It's so amazing the
the
people you
Purple
meet.
Flower Project segued into, you know, you asked how people felt who were part of survivor communities or communities working on rebuilding their resilience or wellness. How they responded was that it dissolved isolation and feelings of powerlessness. There became, without ever sharing our personal stories with each other, there became a common connection, right? That we shared something powerful through this common action, right? So just by sharing your vulnerability or your truth or your story, it's inevitable to like dissolve that isolation. And whether you're in I learned also by sharing that project that whether it was domestic violence or other forms of trauma, there's so many, whether it's grief or losing a parent or caretaking a sick child who's going through like maybe a cancer, right? That people live traumas today. Certainly just whether even racial trauma, we're all on, you know, native land, people, Black Lives Matter. I live in Minneapolis, and Better World Museum was sprouted at a time where there were police shootings in our community, right? And creating more equitable space in drawing together in virtual reality became the focus of all of our projects. So it didn't become trauma specific, but about connecting and raising resilience and creating this equitable space instead of a focus based on healing from trauma. So that we really shifted our mindset to be one about raising wholeness together as a community that created more resilient individuals, groups, and communities as a whole, right? So that's how the VR Garden project started, was that, oh gosh, right after the election, the 45th presidential election in the United States, I was feeling really vulnerable. And I had just gotten the Oculus Rift. I drew using
which
Google
is a
Filter
VR
Brush,
headset
a
for
VR
everybody out there
headset.
who might not. Yeah, well, like even outside of, because we do have some YouTubers out there. Hey guys.
Yeah, this is
so they might not know what an Oculus
cross-platform.
Rift, right?
Right. Yeah. So I drew a couple of flowers. I posted a link inviting anybody to add to the garden onto Twitter and Facebook and in the group AR/VR Women and Allies. And through somebody had said, oh, that was really stupid of me, that I had just opened myself up to, and can I make little quotes? They were like, the worst of the internet, the worst of the internet. I opened myself up to, and I was like, no way. People are good inherently. Let's just see what happens. And people from all around the world drew in the VR Garden.
Is that where the Facebook community project started? So that was the one that you did with XR Pioneer, the Facebook community
actually,
leadership.
That was a little while down the line. That was something that was shown at the TEDx Minneapolis, and then I had applied for the Facebook community leadership program, and over 6,000 people applied, and I was honored to be one of 117 members that included 15 youth fellows from 42 countries around the world. And for a year, I was a Facebook Community Leadership Fellow, starting in September 2018. Wait, it just ended. Yeah, so it just ended in September. I just finished
2019,
writing.
yeah.
2019, yeah. And
So
I
what
went,
did you do in the Facebook
Well-
community leadership? Because you could have gone anywhere and you could have done anything
I could
that
have
was
done anything in the world, but I
right.
decided actually to close my museum. We had a brick and mortar space for 5 years in the downtown Minneapolis City Center. It was 8,000 square feet, and I knew what we were doing was working. It was participatory murals, an indoor edible garden, a maker lab, and a virtual reality center area for drawing in the VR garden. And I closed the doors to create a modular pop-up museum concept, ideal for airports, malls, and museums. So people all around the world could draw together in a VR garden. And then the idea was that then that art would go through like public spaces, and the city becomes the museum, and the architecture
Wow, brilliant.
hosts, like the skyline will become all of our drawings collectively. Better World Museum is a climate and community museum, so we draw the garden, but also like rain or clouds or other elements, trees, right? So we would have beautiful things like that. So I decided to close it and create this model. And at that time, I was also starting to get into designing a robot as well for the Better World Museum for
I love it.
community engagement. We use a lot of augmented reality, virtual beings, and then I really want to develop this cool robot, and I'm excited about it. And Minneapolis is an awesome place to live. We think that we're really progressive. We have a great art scene, but to be honest with you, and I love my city in many kind of ways, but it's not as progressive as they like to say. It's not a futurist space in the way that I need to be my fullest potential me in a community that supports technology. So
that was smart to do something.
I needed to take a step out of my walls and be able to go to where people were who were passionately working on technology. So I designed a year where I would go to Shenzhen, China, and work with XR Pioneer.
Which I think Paula's in the house.
Paula!
All right, give us some emojis, Paula.
Yeah,
There we go.
so
She
I
was here a couple of weeks.
really admire Paula's team and wanted to work directly with their influence as educators. I worked for a long time in museums with education, and that's how I approach our visitors at the Better World Museum. So I went to China to be with the best of all.
Of course.
And then, and also to San Francisco, where I hosted a one-day event at the Yerba Buena Art Center's lounge with the help of Cece Trevino, helped me out a lot with being my eyes on the ground in San Francisco while I was in China to organize.
And what did you do there?
And then
Like what was
we drew in the VR garden when I was with Paula. We worked very hard with her students. She has students at schools in Shenzhen and Beijing, in which and other places as well in China, but we worked with these students and we drew in the VR garden, and also I was able to perform on stages at assemblies for her classrooms, and we created a pop-up museum experience at XR Pioneer, And we worked with the children through Rec Room and Tilt Brush as well. We used Rec Room in a way to create more equitable space in the classroom and draw a VR garden and how to draw tree lessons. And there were times that I was teaching students in Beijing from Shenzhen, and then there were times that I had the opportunity to teach the children in Beijing from a taco restaurant, Tacolicious,
Oh my goodness.
in Palo Alto and San
Tacolicious.
Francisco during a Facebook community leadership party. And then I flew to Beijing and met the kids in real life and got to
What was that
draw.
like?
It was
I'm sure
wonderful
that was
because
amazing.
we already, just like you and I, we had met in VR, and then we met in real life, and we already felt deeply connected, like we know each other. That's how it was to meet the students. We
Right.
already know each other and felt intimate with each other.
I love that. And then you even, you did this amazing project in China and in
Yes.
San Francisco. You're creating this empathy. You're creating people to not feel self-isolated, which is just, you're creating footprints, which is unbelievable. And then fast forward to just a few months ago, you were accepted into MIT Reality. Reality Hack.
Yes. Yeah, so we took the community garden there. I was lucky to have a team of some incredible members in which we made a augmented reality garden using Unity and Vuforia, where I drew a VR dandelion patch with almost about 60 members of the Reality Hack. And when the participants would plant the AR seeds, these little pods on the ground, and then scan them, the flowers will pop up, and then there's a little augmented reality bee in your hand to pollinate them. So you plant the seeds, you propagate, you watch them grow, and then you pollinate the seeds. And the plants are urban edible wild plants, so that any city can have these urban edible wild plants that grow everywhere in their city. The main drawing was the community drawing of the dandelion patch, which is here behind you on the side.
We're in the hive with a couple of bees. Oh, I'm gonna have to try that out when I get home.
Yeah, you are able to try it out by using the ARIs.
Yes. Okay. Well, we'll leave
Yes.
that link. We'll share that link out on YouTube and on our social media so everybody can see it.
Thank you.
So you did a couple of videos, sort of like she's like the Bob Ross of VR. A Bob Ross, right?
Yeah.
So she goes into virtual
you.
reality, she videotapes it, and she shares it out, and she shares how she's drawing and how she's creating in VR. There's a whole playlist on YouTube,
Yeah.
which,
There's like
it must be really
30 or so of these draw together videos. We've learned that when people draw together in VR especially, they draw together to make a better world. So especially in this time of museuming from home, so to say, we'd like to have these drawing lessons, so to say, be there for you. But they were created before this, just live through Facebook Spaces.
wow. And then that even the next thing this woman does it all. It's and what you're doing isn't just doing it for business sake. It's really changing people's course in their lives and their learning. And now your next step is going into Rec Room, where I know I've attended, you have these socials every Wednesday, sometimes at 5 p.m. Eastern, sometimes at 10 p.m. Eastern, where you go in, and I was eating pizza and donuts and drinking root beer.
It's been really, really
this is VR,
fantastically
you guys.
fun. We have a museum social club. We're starting an artist in residence program And we're also have a VR garden club and VR yoga, in which we're starting in the rec room
Oh, that'll be
museum,
fun.
in which it's always open all the time. Something in which one of your guests on your show, Andy Fidel, said that it is important to have cross-platform accessibility. And I believe that that element is a rainbow bridge in which we need today as VR artists, especially when schools and parents are at home right now feeling really stressed out, that there can be these really simple opportunities to merge into technology that that they have access to. So whether it's Mozilla hubs or alt space like this, we have these cross-platform bridges.
Absolutely.
And that's
rainbow
definitely
bridge.
a rainbow bridge. And that's what Rec Room Better World Museum is.
And then I also was reading earlier today that you have a residency program.
Yes,
right?
Yes. We just launched our artist residency program, and I invite everyone to apply on our website. It's called the 1 Hour Arts program, and you come, and if you want to learn how to use the Maker pen, the circuits, and the interactive maker tools, I'll spend an hour with you if you'd like. But then the artist spends at least an hour making something and transforming the museum space into a creative solution along the theme of making a better world. And
it's the first time I've ever heard of a VR art residency, actually. I was thinking,
awesome.
Is this the first? I mean,
and then we have an art opening afterwards. So,
well, speaking of art, I mean, you know your art. So I think I think we're all ready for some art trivia.
What is this?
An online residency?
Is that,
all right.
That's not me.
We are here.
Museum selfie.
Exactly. Well, we want to test how well everyone knows their art history. And every time I talk to Paige, she shares.
Right now.
I love it, because really every time she ever talks about anything, the passion is people, community, and art. And I've learned so much about artists on their own from just she has this breadth of knowledge. So let's test it with question number 1. Everybody on your right hand or your left hand. That's okay. On your left-hand side, you see emojis. We already kind of talked about that. And for all you YouTubers, you've got the heart emoji and the clap emoji. So join in. Okay.
Okay. Hearts
so,
and claps. Okay.
This woman lived with her artist husband in separate houses connected with a bridge, not a rainbow bridge. It could have been
not a rainbow bridge.
A bridge.
It was a blue bridge.
Oh,
yes. Yeah, that's what I
so you must know the answer. So it's
either
Frida Kahlo or Mary Cassatt with the heart. Yeah. And I'm so sorry if I messed that name up. So what does everybody think? Is it the clap or the heart?
It's the clap.
All right, it's the clap. We gave it the clap. Where's Heather? Okay.
All right. This is fun.
Yes.
Oh,
okay.
God.
Cool. Is everybody ready for question number 2?
Andy Cohen.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
I love
question number 2.
Okay. Drumbeat roll. Who created this art piece?
Oh, yeah. I know
Julie
this one.
DeGrasse or... Why don't you say that name?
Artemisia Gentileschi.
Yes, thank you. So,
Artemisia Gentileschi.
Wow, what's
Esther,
this?
Queen Esther. I know
Very
who
good.
it is. Yeah. Where's my emojis?
Okay.
Artemisia.
All right, very good. It was the heart. So all you YouTubers, if you got it right.
She was amazing. Did you know that she defended her own rape trial and won it?
Against
It's
who?
true. Against Alexandro Tassi, who had a horrible criminal history.
Oh my goodness, did anybody else know that? That's crazy. Okay, wow,
Oh,
an
that's
artist
one
that
of
was a
my
lawyer.
drawings. You put one of
Oh.
my drawings in.
Well,
That's
you
so
I
awesome
did.
for museum
This-
draw.
I
How did
saw
you-
this, and it was that piece. It mirrors the actual piece that was done by this artist.
At the Hirshhorn. So I have Better World Museum on Instagram, but I also have Museum Draw. And thanks for finding that. That's
Of course.
those museum drawings that I did. And there's like, I actually did over 4,000 of them. Which is
4,000,
insane.
wow.
4,000 of those with my finger on an iPad. I
Oh
just
my
get a
gosh.
stylus though with my new iPad Pro, and I love it.
Well, there we go. What artist
Yeah.
evokes activists to cover themselves with blood?
With blood.
Mm.
Oh, well, Anna Mendieta,
Wow.
who's.
I wonder why
then
she
has-
does that.
I'll tell you. You can
Okay.
read about it on Wikipedia, but she was married to artist Carl Andre. Sometimes his artwork is in museums, and people who feel strongly about the fact that her death wasn't really clearly vindicated because he was part of a real bros club in the art scene. So she fell supposedly from her 35th story window in New York to her death. And
Wow.
I don't like his art at all. It looks like cold slabs of concrete sidewalk, and
Ooh.
I
so
just don't like
maybe
his
he had
art
an
at all.
obsession with that.
I think it like ran in there. It makes me
Oof.
feel sick when I see his work at museums. So
You're such a good
I'm
person.
with those activists. I support them. And especially in
it.
this time of pandemic and social isolation, there's a lot of survivors or people going through domestic violence right now at home. And so it's not just people who are sick that we need to think about, but also people who are stuck with sick people.
You're so
So,
right. It's even
yeah,
weird going into this
well,
next question because it's more of
okay,
like that
what's
poppy. But I think like that's so true.
Okay,
You never
let's
really
bring it
think
back
about
up.
that. Okay, wait.
Yeah.
Which celebrity had a portrait made by Andy Warhol? Was it Mariah Carey? Can you think of a Mariah Carey song or John Lennon?
Well, I think
the
I think that a Mariah Carey one would be really awesome, but
So
it's not correct.
that's right.
I would probably do one. If you were to do a portrait, would you do it of John Lennon or Mariah Carey?
John Lennon.
Yeah,
I'm a big
me
Beatles fan.
too.
Peace.
Yeah, peace.
Peace. Question
That
number
was so
5.
fun. All right, one
Wait,
more.
there's one more.
Okay.
True or false, everybody? Pay attention. Has anybody ever heard of the Guggenheim? Well, is it true or false? Did Frank Lloyd Wright want the Guggenheim Museum's exterior to be red? Was it true or false?
It sounds crazy. It sounds really crazy. Can you imagine it red? Did you know that when they restored
What's the answer? Is
it
it true or
last?
false? Which one do you think? Oh, yes, she is correct. It is true, everybody. Okay, so keep saying it.
And not
What-
only that, but it's also been yellow and brown. But the Guggenheim folks always liked it sort of a light gray. And I like it white. But I think that if I were the director of the Guggenheim, I would make it rainbow. I would make it a rainbow swirl.
Rainbow Bridge. Yes,
A
I
rainbow,
like that.
yeah.
What about you'd mentioned something about like Frank Lloyd Wright. with red, with the color red, or not with Frank
It
Lloyd
was
Wright, but with the
red.
color red.
Frank
What-
Lloyd Wright believed that red was the color of creativity.
Mm,
I like that.
I do too. So,
Yeah.
Paige, doesn't it feel like we're hanging out?
Always,
so weird.
It always
Doesn't everybody
feels
feel
like
that
we're
way?
hanging out.
Oh,
And I
mean,
love
it
hanging
does.
out the most in VR.
I know.
I'm actually starting to maybe even like it better than real life. Just because I'm doing it a lot. Well, no, okay, that's so weird. I do
But
like
it's true.
real life,
Right now it is.
but I
It's better
feel
than real
really,
life. Let's be honest.
yeah, I really have the most wonderful in VR social life. It's
Yes.
fantastic. So thank you. Come be
Yes,
a part
thank
of
you
it.
for
At
coming.
Better World Museum, and through coming here, I come here as often as possible on Thursdays. You've made such a welcoming format through the Hive,
Mm,
and I meet the best people here in your audience.
our audience.
So, our audience.
Everybody's.
And having partners like Paula.
So your next thing's going to be
here.
Better World
Thank
in
you.
Alt Space.
Better
Big
World
shout
in
out.
Alt Space. Well,
Paula
I
and
really
Bobby
would
in the
like,
audience, they were-
instead of airports, malls, and museums everywhere, now I want to have Better World museums in all the VR and cross-platform spaces. And
That's great.
you're able to visit, in the future, you'll be able to visit Better World Museum wherever you are, whether it's through PlayStation or through your phone or through a PC or Oculus or Steam, but through AltSpace, VR Chat, Rec Room, and more.
Unbelievable. I'm sure it's a wonderful thing to have that kind of access. And actually talking about Alt Space, next week we're going to have Amber Osborne. Definitely have to come check her out.
Ooh.
You'd love her. Yeah, she's an AR VR marketing rock star. I mean, she literally used to work with bands and do marketing for bands, but she's like a top CMO, Adobe insider influencer. She's really a smart, talented person. So
You
just
have-
like you, everybody I talk to is just so, they're trailblazing their way out. You know, it's just unbelievable because it's untouched ground. So, you know, it's
Paula was here with Bobby Carlton and Andy Fidel.
Andy, yeah.
Yeah, and last
Yes.
week you had Joanna Popper. You have, it's an honor to be here with you. Thank you.
Yeah, for me too, because you're very, very talented and you're making a difference in people's lives too. So I'm sure the world thanks you for that because you are really, truly making it a better world with all the things that you do. And
We're doing it
maybe we can open it
together.
up to some questions.
We're doing it together.
Absolutely. If there's any questions, we could just either we go down to the floor or we could have them ask.
Yeah.
If anyone has any questions, just to the right of your side, you can see. Oh, we've got a question. Okay. So to the right, you have to actually tap. That's a good question. Let's see.
Let's see. Do I have to do anything to hear them?
No.
Okay. Click to raise your hand. Cool.
Okay, the first question is Nayla. We've got the microphone. Go
Hello.
ahead.
Hi.
Hi, Nayla.
Hi. Well, hello. Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes,
No,
you can.
Okay. First of all, I want to thank you so much for such a wonderful talk. This has been super duper inspiring, and it's my first time in the Hive. Thank you so much for hosting this, Navah. Paige, I have a question. What advice would you give to a person that is aspiring to create these kinds of spaces for their artwork? I'm just starting out really in creating in building worlds for my artwork and for experiences, and I wanted to know what advice you would give to somebody who's just starting out.
What a wonderful question. Thank you. The advice that I would offer to somebody just starting out is to join Facebook groups and Twitter discussions, being just active amongst like the AR, VR women and allies. And from there, you're able to create relationships and form conversations and dialogue with people. I would think that everything I've learned, it's because I've wanted to connect with other professionals
Battery low.
who are amongst us. And, of course there's tutorials, but like just reaching out and talking and putting a question out and being willing to just like build something or try something new and not worry about doing it right. Fail forward.
Fail forward. I love that.
Fail forward. I have to say that the VR community is the most supportive space I've ever found myself in, and I'm able to fall on my chin every day and stand back up in a supportive community. So you're in a wonderful place to try new things because we'll be rooting you on.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah.
100%. So
Yeah.
share it.
Yeah.
I agree. We met in ARVR Women and Allies. They were a big part of me. Meeting Eva and then meeting you guys, just all of that was it's a wonderful story.
Absolutely.
We're all really good friends because we've gone through together. We even met in real life in OC. But
That's true.
I think that's it for questions. So maybe we could go down to the middle and do a little after party action of the Hive.
Yeah, awesome.
Thanks everybody for
Thank
coming,
you,
and
Navah.
to all the
Thank you
YouTubers out there.
everybody for being here. And please
Yes.
reach out, whether through social media or through our website, and become part of our Artist in Residence program. We really love to use it as an opportunity to redefine the museum and the arts community space so that through virtual reality and cross-platformness, we can show resiliency through working together and creating, making a better world. And especially since next week is Earth Day, we would love to have you. We're going to have a really big Earth Day event next Wednesday for our museum social club.
I'll be there for sure to watch the sunset, eat pizza, eat donuts, draw, and have fun. Thanks, everybody.
All
All
right.
right,
Thank you. Let's go to the center.
Woo!
Yay.